Okay, special welcome everybody. I'm very, very happy to have everyone here joining for the shiur on Zoom and in person. This is part of a special Thursday night program that we're going to have going on over here in Kal Yirayim, where at 9 o'clock, it's actually going to be changed next week to 8:45, by the way, but Chaskel will be giving a shiur. Rabbi R Chaskel Zionce will be giving a shiur in Sifsei Chein. This is a beautiful sefer that is sort of an introduction to all of Kabbalah and Chassidus, except that when Reb Chaskel gives the shiur, there's a lot more to it, and he's going to be drawing on his vast knowledge of a lot of different Sefer Kabbalah and Sefer Chassidus to really illuminate this sefer for us, Mitzvah Shem. And then afterwards, at 9:45, we're going to be doing the chabura that we've been doing ongoing for a few months now over here, which is learning through the Biyam Darkecha on Oitzreis Chaim. This is a sefer that was written by the Talmidim of Rabbi Shema and Morgenstern, which is the Rebbe's teachings on Oitzreis Chaim. So it's like if you took the system of Kabbalah and said, what's the pnimius of the system of Kabbalah? What's the chassidus sort of the system of Kabbalah? What does it mean to me on a deep level? What does the tzimtzum mean to me, for example? This is what the sefer is all about. This sefer, this chabura that we're learning in, is not me giving a shiur. It's a chabura. We're learning through the sefer together. So we're going through the sefer and we're speaking about it, and people are invited to interject and to bring their own understandings and comments to a certain extent. And that's the way it's going to go. There's a chance that we won't do the second shiur tonight, but for sure we're going to start with this one now. And I'm very, very thankful and excited that R Chaskel Zionce has decided and agreed to give this shiur. And I'm very thankful for everyone for coming. And I want to say, as with many things that we do over here in the shul, that it should be Le'ilei Nishmas David Yosef ben Avram, our friend and teacher. And we should always have him in mind whenever we're learning Pnimius, for sure. So without further ado, I'm going to give the floor over to our holy chaver, R Chaskel Zionce.
Thank you, Rabbi Avram. I'm very humbled, to be honest, that I was asked to give the shiur. I love this shul with my entire heart, and the shul is a big light and ore to Thornhill and to Toronto and to Canada and to North America and the entire globe. And there's definitely something very special going on in this shul that this kind of thing is not, I don't believe it's happening anywhere else in the GTA. And I'm very humbled and honored to be asked to give this shiur. It's interesting that when Rabbi Avram asked me to come, so he told me that I should be taking not Clark, but I should go to Center. And why? Because as we probably all know, there's a very big demonstration going on right now in Clark. And some people have expressed it as the forces of good versus the forces of evil. And I don't think it's a bad description. I don't think it's a coincidence that Rabbi Avram and Shmuley Fuchs asked me to start this shiur today. As I was driving here, Rabbi Avram said to me that I'm standing on my back porch and there's 12 cops on horses and there's chanting. And this shiur is happening right here. Like right here. Like, how far are we from this demonstration? From all places. And I think it's remarkable that they asked me to start a shiur in the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, which is, the Baal Shem Tov's tafkid was to bring or to the world, to bring light. And it's very interesting that we're starting tonight. We've been speaking about it for a while, but we're starting tonight. So this shiur is a shiur in Sefer Sifsei Chein. This is the old edition of Sifsei Chein. I'm going to hold it up. Okay, this edition came out probably about 16, 17 years ago. It was a hit. But since then, the new edition has come out. And this is the new edition of Sifsei Chein. And now they've come out with other volumes on the Yom Tov. So you have one on Purim, you have one on Pesach, you have one on Lag Boimer, etc., Shalosh Regalim. So Sifsei Chein has become almost a movement. Oh, how are you? Okay, Baruch Hashem. Sifsei Chein has actually become almost a movement. And when it came out this time, there were people lining up to dedicate the different chapters of Sifsei Chein. And if you'll look in the new edition, you'll see that every chapter was dedicated by a different person. And it came out with many, many, many haskamas of the biggest people around today.
Somebody sitting here?
No. It's, I wish there were more people sitting here. So, Sefer Sifsei Chein is, it's not new, but it's been redone now. And it's a tremendous chiddush. We're going to get back to exactly what Sifsei Chein is. But first, we're going to do a little bit of an introduction, and we're going to introduce this with a mashal that the Heilige Rizhner Rebbe said. The Rizhner Rebbe was from the greatest tzaddikim of his door, and the Rizhner Rebbe gave a mashal, and the mashal was that there was, in Europe, you had, let's say, you could have the king of Poland, but Poland. Oh, how are you, Chaim? Welcome. Poland was a very big Medina, a very big country, and you had little derflach, you had these little villages all throughout Poland. And so maybe in Warsaw, the king of Poland had his palace, but in these little derflach, these little villages, you didn't know anything about that palace or the king. Oh, Yisrael, hi. Welcome. So the Rizhner Rebbe said like this, that there was a king and a palace, and somebody came to one of these little villages, and they came to this little village, and they gathered around the people of the village, and he said, you should know that there's a king, and he lives in a palace, and he starts describing the palace, and the different rooms, and the different hallways, and the soldiers, and the moat, and the drawbridge, and etc., etc. And these people never knew that there's a palace. They never knew. They're just there somewhere out in the woods, so to say. And this person's coming and saying all these big chidushim that no one ever heard about, that there's a palace and a king. And so he described it, and some people believed him, but not everybody. And later on in the future, a different person came to that same village, and he came and he started to talk about the king and the palace, but he drew an image with a pencil or a pen, and he drew an image on a piece of paper of the palace. And once he drew that image, more people believed him. And then many, many years later, in the 1850s, somebody came to that village and started talking about the king and the palace, and he came with a photograph. And it's interesting because at that time, that's when photography was starting in the 1850s. And that's when the Rizhner lived. And he came with a photograph, and it was a photograph of the palace. And once he showed the photograph, everybody believed him. That's the mashal. What is the nimshal? The nimshal is that the illustration is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who wrote the Zohar. He didn't write it, he revealed the Zohar. He was the illustration. He was the description, the verbal description. The next person came and he was the illustration, that was the Arizal. And the final person came with the photograph, and that was the Baal Shem Tov. So what really does this mean? We have a very important Torah from the Degel Machne Ephraim. The Degel Machne Ephraim was a grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. It was not the first chassidishe sefer, but one of the first chassidishe seforim. And in the Parsha of Beshalach, he says a very interesting thing. He says in the Parsha of Beshalach, we have the words in Chumash, Uvnei Yisrael yoitzim beyad Rama. And the Jewish people, they went out with an upraised hand. We have Targum Onkelos says that beyad Rama, he translates in Aramish or Aramaic as Bereish Gali. Bereish Gali means like with a uplifted head. In other words, the Jews came out they didn't come out downtrodden. They came out very, very, very high. Their heads were uplifted. And the words that the Onkelos uses is Bereish Gali. It's Aramaic. So says, hi, welcome. It's my brother, Moshe. Says the Heilige Degel Machne Ephraim that Bereish Gali, that word Bereish is Beis, Reish, Yud, Shin. So Bereish, Beis, Reish, Yud, Shin is Rosh Hashanah Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's also Rosh Hashanah Rabbeinu Yitzchak ben Shlomo, who was the Arizal. And it's also Rosh Hashanah Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. It's also Rosh Hashanah, by the way, of the Rashash, Shalom ben Yitzchak. Also. And so, Ivnei Yisrael yoitzim beyad Rama, the Jewish people will come out with an upraised hand. Says Onkelos, Bereish Gali, Bereish, with these three individuals that we just mentioned, Gali, Gali means the revelation. The revelation will come with these three individuals. So what does this mean? So we have like this.
You said four.
I'm sorry?
You said four.
Well, yeah. So the Degel Machne Ephraim doesn't say the Rashash, but it happens to be that the Rashash was from the very, very big tzaddikim that explained the Kisvei Arizal. So it's probably not coincidence that he also fits into that picture. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was the one who went into a cave for many, many years, and in that cave, the highest secrets of the Torah were revealed to him. And he came out, and they say he wrote the Zohar. He didn't really write it, but the Zohar is his Torah, the highest Torah, the Panemius of the Torah, right? We have that we say that the Torah is Pardes. Pardes means an orchard, but Pardes means the Torah can be darshan in four different ways. Pardes is Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod, right? Pshat is the simple explanation, Remez is what it's alluding to, Drush is how you can look into the Torah and discover other things, and Sod is the secrets of the Torah. There was always Sod that was revealed, but Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the entire Zohar came from him. So there was never such an explosion of secrets of Torah before the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. When on the last day of Rabbi Shimon Bar of his life, he instructed Rabbi Abba to write down the things that he was saying. Why Rabbi Abba? Because Rabbi Abba could write in a double way. Everyone else could write the secrets or write the pshat. Rabbi Abba was able to write secrets and at the same time write pshat. So when you read the Zohar, the whole Zohar is secrets. When you read the Zohar, Stam Zohar, you're reading the pshat of the secrets. But Rabbi Abba wrote it in a way that he was also writing the secrets of the secrets. And that's why Rabbi Abba was chosen to write the Zohar. The Zohar was written, but as strangely enough, it disappeared. And the pshat seems to be that it disappeared because the world was not ready for it. And the Zohar says itself, in the Zohar itself it says, B'sifra da yifkun min galisa. That means with this sefer, we will be released from galus. That's what the Zohar says. The Zohar itself says this. So, if it's not time for Mashiach, then the Zohar cannot yet be revealed. So the Zohar gets hidden. In other words, it disappears. And it remains hidden for something like 1,200 years. There's different nusachs of how the Zohar reappeared. Oh, somebody's... he's in? Yeah. He's in. There's different nusachs of how the Zohar reappeared. You should listen, Rav Avram, listen for that beep because I totally missed it. One nusach in Chabad, they have a nusach that somebody found a chest in the sea, and somehow they fetched this chest out of the sea. They opened up the chest, and they found scrolls and manuscripts, and this became what we know today as the Zohar. It was rediscovered, and people tried to learn it. People did their best with it. The Ramak, Harav Moshe Cordovero, who was actually the Rebbe of the Arizal in Kabbalah, he worked with it. He said Pshat, he explained the Zohar. But the real truth is that nobody was able to explain the Zohar the way the Arizal came and explained the Zohar. And the Arizal was a massive chiddush. The Arizal developed a system of understanding the Zohar. And the system, they say on this system, it is so complicated and elaborate, it's not possible that a human being could have done it. And anyone who even gets involved in the system of the Arizal, even on a very surface way, can see it is so complicated and so deep, and everything fits perfectly like a puzzle. And anyone who tried to explain the Zohar before the Arizal did their best. When the Arizal came, he was able to explain the entire Zohar, and the reason is because he had a system. The system is a fantastic system, and the system really, it doesn't just explain the Zohar. It explains Tanakh, it explains Mishnayos, it explains Medrash, it explains Gemara. Everything in Yiddishkeit, every oifen of Yiddishkeit, it explains. And not only that, it explains the theory of music. It explains biology, it explains geography, astrology, geometry, technology, you name it. Whatever is going on in the world, if you apply the system of the Arizal to that thing, you see amazing, everything follows the system of the Arizal. And you can only understand this when you get a little bit involved. And this was the massive chiddush of the Arizal. And as the Zohar says, it was the next step of getting prepared for the Geula. That the Arizal, we have the Zohar, but we couldn't understand it. And now we have the Arizal to explain it. So that was the next step. The R Shimon Bar Yochai only had a few Talmidim. The Arizal had much more Talmidim. And then you have the next step. And the next step was the Baal Shem Tov. So, what did the Baal Shem Tov do? Baal Shem Tov, first of all, had does anyone know who the Rebbe of the Baal Shem Tov was? Does anybody know? Baal Shem Tov had a Rebbe. Oh, Achia Hashiloni. Achia Hashiloni. So many tzaddikim learned with a malach, and the Baal Shem Tov also had a malach who taught him, and that malach was Achia Shiloni. Achia Shiloni was, when he was a human being, so to say, he was the Rebbe of Eliyahu Navi. That's who he was. And he came to the Baal Shem Tov and began learning with the Baal Shem Tov secretly, and started teaching all of the secrets of the Arizal to the Baal Shem Tov, until the Baal Shem Tov became what he was. There was a Rosh Hashanah, a very, very famous Rosh Hashanah in the lifetime of the Baal Shem Tov, and the tzaddikim at that time, there was a method called Aliyas Neshama. This method, this is something that I don't know today if people can really do this. You can call it a method of meditation, but it's much more than that. Very, very big tzaddikim were able, probably through concentrating on certain holy names, Shemus of Hashem, able to get into a certain zone of meditation through the kavanas of the Arizal, and to be able to go places in Shemaim. Not physically go, but in their mind they went. And they really, really went to these places. And not only that, but when they were in these places, they could see each other there. So they were actually there in these places, and their neshamas were in these places. And a lot of times you'll have a thing that, let's say in Poland or in Europe, when one tzaddik passed away, so it took a few days till everybody got the message, oh, this tzaddik's no longer here. A lot of times tzaddikim knew instantly. I'm sorry?
Rav Nachman knew the Berditchever.
Oh, the story of fame, right. So Chaim Oliver is saying there's a famous story that Rav Nachman knew that the Berditchever was nifter before anyone else knew. And so how did these tzaddikim know? So you could say, well, it was their Ruach HaKodesh, they knew, they felt it, but the one very obvious pshat is that when they used to all go up, they used to all see each other in these places. And if somebody was not there, that meant they're not there. In other words, that person is now in Shemaim, but in a different place, because a person who passes away, he goes to a different place. He's not in that place. So when that person was absent, they knew, oh, he's gone. That's what they say. That's what they say. There was one famous mice of the Baal Shem Tov that everybody probably knows. In Chabad they talk about it a lot, but it applies to the entire Chassidus. And that is that on a certain Rosh Hashanah, the Baal Shem Tov did these Yechudim, which means he thought about these holy shemus, names of Hashem, and he went up. And he went up to different places in Shemaim, until he made it to the Heichal of the Mashiach, whatever that means, the hall of the Mashiach, the palace of the Mashiach. And he went there and he met the Mashiach. And he asked the Mashiach, Masai Kasimar, when are you coming? And the Mashiach told him, Keshiyefutsu mayinosecha chutza, when your well springs flow out. That's when I'm coming. So what exactly does this mean? It means that the goal of the Baal Shem Tov was, what he was being told is that, as we know, the Mashiach is going to come through the secrets of the Torah, and this is why the Zohar was revealed, and this is why the Arizal came to clarify and explain the Zohar. And this project has to go to the next step, the next level. And the next level is going to be the Baal Shem Tov. And what's the Baal Shem Tov going to do with this? The tafkid, the requirement of the Baal Shem Tov is going to be to take this great light of the Zohar and spread it to Klal Yisrael and spread it to the world. And that's going to bring Mashiach. That's what he was told by Mashiach. Keshiyefutsu mayinosecha chutza, when your well springs will flow out. So the Baal Shem Tov had a big job, and he was quietly, secretly learning with Achia Hashiloni, his malach, his angel. And at one point, it is revealed to him that it's time to go public. So the Baal Shem Tov has to stop doing things in secret. And what the Baal Shem Tov does is he starts to gather around himself Talmidim. And this was an amazing, amazing, amazing system. The system of Talmidim. And this is how the entire Chassidic movement grew. And what was happening was like this. The Baal Shem Tov would specifically target the biggest Talmidei Chachamim in Europe and try to bring them close. And not only, and usually the case was at that time that the biggest Talmidei Chachamim were also very, very much into Kabbalah. It was, normally it went hand in hand. At that time there were a lot of people that were starting to get deep and deep into Kabbalah. The Torah of the Arizal was out. It was available. It wasn't all, some of it was printed, some of it wasn't printed, some of it was in manuscript form. But the Torah of the Arizal was out and people were into it. and seforim were being printed, and the Baal Shem Tov targeted the holiest people, the biggest Talmidei Chachamim, and the people generally who already knew a lot of Kabbalah, and brought them close to him, and made them Talmidim, made them students. And he taught them the method, everything that he was doing, he was teaching to them. And the goal was then that they should go out, and they should go to different cities and attract more Talmidim. And this system continued to grow and grow and grow. You had this element of the Baal Shem Tov that he was a miracle worker, he was a holy person, so he had a lot of attention, that people would come to the Baal Shem Tov, that they didn't have parnasa, they didn't have kids, they didn't have a shidduch, they weren't gezind, they weren't healthy, whatever it was, and the Baal Shem Tov was doing miracles. This is what was happening. And people were talking about it. It was exciting. So people were coming. So you had regular people coming, and you had bigger people coming. And the Baal Shem Tov was trying to be makar of everybody, and he made a system that he was sending people out. He was creating other rebbes like himself, teaching them the secrets and the methods that he was using, and he was sending them out to do exactly what he was doing. And this continued. The Baal Shem Tov had a Talmud, the Rebbe Rebbe, the Mizritcher Magid. The Mizritcher Magid was excellent at this system, and the system continued. And so what was happening is that throughout Eastern Europe, the Chassidim kept appointing these tzaddikim and putting them in different areas, and those tzaddikim were doing miracles and being big oivdei Hashem, and there was a whole avoid that was singing and dancing, entire and amazing divrei Torah coming out, and slowly but surely, more and more of Kol Yisrael was being captured in this movement, and this became the Chassidic movement, and it spread. It spread to Poland. It started in Ukraine. It spread to Poland and to Galicia, and to Russia and White Russia and Romania, Hungary, etc., etc., etc. So you had all of these Talmidim spreading the Torah of the Arizal, of the Arizal, and ultimately the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was taking that Torah of the Arizal and making it as practical as possible. The real Kabbalah is very, very difficult and confusing, and the Baal Shem Tov was taking that Torah and making it extremely, extremely practical. The Nusach, changing the Nusach to the Nusach of the Arizal, and that Klal Yisrael should daven this Nusach and daven in this way, and doing mitzvahs with kavanas. This was the derech of the Baal Shem Tov. Through this derech, there was a lot of Torah that ended up coming out, because all the tzaddikim used to say Torah. So the Baal Shem Tov said a lot of Torah, which a lot of it got recorded, Baruch Hashem. We have the Rebbe Rebbe, the Mizritcher Magid, said a lot of Torah that was recorded, and he had Talmidim, he had great Talmidim, the Rebbe Melech, the Apteruv, Kozhnitzer, the Rebbe Mendel from Rimanov. All of these tzaddikim were saying Torah, and their Talmidim were saying Torah. So you ended up with, today there are hundreds, if not thousands, of chassidishe seforim. And this is all what are chassidishe seforim. All these chassidishe seforim are the yisoidus of the Arizal, but in a way that you can understand them, a way that can be practical, and you can use it in practical avoida, living with Hashem. The whole one very specific line that's very, very common throughout the whole thread of the Chassidus is B'chol D'rachecha Doyehu. You have to know Hashem in everything you do. That means even if you're washing the dishes, but if you're washing the dishes because you need to eat from those dishes, and eating is going to make you strong, and if you're strong, you can learn Torah, and you can bring home Parnasa, and you can daven, then washing the dishes can be a holy, holy thing.
I wash dishes for Shimon Bar.
Okay, then you're a very wise man. This was the derech of the Baal Shem Tov, that living Kabbalah should be in everything that you do, everything that you think, but not raw Arizal's Kabbalah, the Kabbalah of the Baal Shem Tov that is understood and is explained and can be you can live with it. You can do it. It can become a way of your life. This was the derech of the Baal Shem Tov, and many seforim were ended up coming out. Now, there's two very big, I would call them tragedies, today in the Chassidic movement, in my opinion. As a general rule, you can have a very, very big chassidus. And it's not particular to one chassidus. I don't want to say names, but basically, in any big chassidus, there is not a lot of time being spent in chassidishe seforim.
Really?
Yeah, to me, this is a great tragedy. There are two very big exceptions to this rule. Chabad is the biggest exception.
Slonim.
I'm sorry?
That's Slonim.
Slonim? Slonim learns a lot of chassidishe seforim?
I'm saying, don't they? Well, they write a lot of Slonim.
Yes, the Slonim Rebbe writes seforim. Yes, correct. But I don't know, maybe yes. I don't know if in Slonim they're spending an hour or two every day learning chassidishe seforim. I don't know. Maybe yes, I don't know. What I do know is Chabad has no problem learning 3 hours chassidus every day. That's for sure. And I know in Breslov also that there's a very big dogesh, a very big emphasis, thank you, on learning chassidishe seforim. But there is a tragedy, in my opinion, there is a tragedy in the Chassidic world in general that they're not learning too much chassidishe seforim. I know, you can have a certain chassidishe yeshiva that's not learning them at all. Or on Thursday night there's some kind of a shmooze that they'll maybe say a little bit of chassidishe seforim, but they're not actually picking up the seforim and learning them. And if they do, it's for 10 or, like 10 minutes before davening or 15 minutes before davening. And these chassidishe seforim, they put such a love of Yiddishkeit in a person's heart. Listen, the people sitting at this table understand what I'm talking about, but it's really, to me, it's a very big tragedy. That's the first part of the tragedy. The second part of the tragedy is that even if you do have somebody that is learning chassidishe seforim, that there's a lot of what they'll call Kabbalah mixed into chassidishe seforim, and the seforim are not understood. So yes, it's true that, let's say you take a sefer like Mor V'Shemesh. So let's say Mor V'Shemesh, let's say 60%, even if you don't know anything about Kabbalah, you can more or less understand what he's saying. But what about the other 40%? And the average chassidishe guy, when he'll come to such a piece, for instance, in the Mor V'Shemesh, he'll do one of two things. Either he'll skip the piece entirely, just skip the piece because he doesn't understand it, or he'll read it but not understand it. Why will he read it? Because he's been told that even though he doesn't understand it, his neshama understands it, and he should read the words, but he still doesn't understand it. I can guarantee you, I believe the Mor V'Shemesh did not write his sefer that 40% should be skipped. And now the truth is, today you do have, like Rabbi Yisrael mentioned, you have like the Slonim sefer, Sefer Shalom, thank you. Became very, very famous and popular now. And that sefer is probably written in a way that you don't have to skip any pieces. He understands and understood, he's not around anymore, but he understood what the Olam can handle, what they know, and he wrote the sefer so that even if you don't know any Kabbalah or Chassidus, you can understand the sefer.
Every Litvish-based medrash
has Nesiva Shalom. Yeah, they have it, right. It became very, very popular. But if you're going back to Svarim, all the Torahs of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Torahs of the Rebbe Ber, the Mezritcher Maggid, and the Rebbe Melech, and the Apteruv, and you name Ber Maim Chaim, all these Torahs are full of Kabbalistic concepts that most people do not understand. And that's where this Sefer Sifsei Chein comes in. Sifsei Chein on the front cover says Hakdama the Sifrei Chassidus. This is an introduction to the seforim of Chassidus. It's really, it is that, and it's even more than that. What it actually is it's actually a kitzer. It's a short form or an abridged version of the entire system of the Arizal. Maybe I shouldn't say entire system, because you'll probably find certain areas in the Arizal that this Sefer doesn't go into. However, the goal of this Sefer was and is that if a person will learn this Sefer Sifsei Chein be'iyun, then 99% of the concepts that come up in chassidishe seforim, you will be able to understand. And that's a tremendous, tremendous help to our door. And to my knowledge, there is no other Sefer that has done this so well. Basically, he's taking the system of the Arizal. It's organized very well in different chapters. And you'll see that in the center of the, I hope it comes out, in the center, that little square in the center, so what you're seeing there is basically what the Arizal has said. And then around the center, you're going to get what the chassidishe seforim say on those comments of the Arizal. So the Sefer was written in an amazing way. And it's really, it's a very big chiddush, the Sefer. Now, you have to understand there's another tremendous maila to this Sefer. You have to understand what happened when the Arizal was living and when he gave over his Torah. The Arizal had many Talmidim, but there's no question, and he told this to him, that the main Talmud of the Arizal was Rav Chaim Vital. Moreinu Rav Chaim Vital. Now, Rav Chaim Vital was constantly with the Arizal, and his goal and his tafkid in life, the Arizal told him, was to listen and understand as clearly as possible the concepts that the Arizal would bring down, because he is the one that was going to write it and organize it. And when the Arizal gave shir, the Arizal could come in and give shir, and he could start one day talking about Zer Ampin, and another day he can come in and talk about Nukva, and another day he could talk about Adam Kadmon, and another day he could talk about Chamesh Gevuras. The Arizal did not give over this Torah in an organized way, believe it or not. The Arizal, I don't know how it worked, but the Arizal came in, and it seems like whatever came to him, he spoke about. He did have a system, but it was not given over in a systematic way. Reb Chaim Vital's job was to grab this Torah and to organize it and write it so that it could be understood in an organized way. And that was the challenge of Moreinu Reb Chaim Vital. Reb Chaim Vital wrote many, many editions of the Arizal system. The most famous one and the biggest one is the Eitz Chaim. The one that a lot of people start off with is Oitras Chaim, which is basically a kitzer of the Eitz Chaim. And Reb Chaim Vital, he was very good at what he did. We have so many seforim, not just, we have seforim that Reb Chaim Vital wrote, not just the system of the Arizal, but other seforim. Reb Chaim Vital actually wrote a diary of his daily life. An amazing sefer called Sefer Zionce. And so we have a glimpse of the life of Reb Chaim Vital, his relationship with the Arizal. He wrote down all his dreams. He wrote down the dreams that other people dreamed about him. He wrote down the things that the Arizal told him. The Arizal told him where his neshama came from, what he was in a different Gilgul. He once told him, it seems that Reb Chaim Vital was very, very afraid of death. He had a very big fear of death. And the Arizal told him, the reason that you have a fear of death is because in this life you were executed. They killed you. And that's why you have this fear of death. The Arizal, I believe also, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Arizal, the Reb Chaim Vital had a certain mark on his back, and the Arizal explained to him in this Gilgul why you have this mark. The Arizal was totally, the Arizal could look at a person's palm and tell you about the person. The Arizal could look at the person's face and tell you about that person. He could look on his forehead and see letters and see what the person's averas were, how many gilgulim a person went through, what a person's tikkun will be. The Arizal says he understood the language of birds, animals, malachim, fire. Yeah, there's a candle flickering when he was learning Mishnayos, and he said that this candle told him this and this and this. The Arizal was, and Reb Chaim, most of the information that we have about the Arizal is coming directly from Reb Chaim Vital, and most of it's coming from this sefer called Sefer Sifsei Chein. It means the book of visions.
Which you can get in English.
There is actually, if someone wants to contact me after the shir, I don't know if it's in print anymore, but usually these things you can get on Amazon. But yes, it's you can get it in English. So most of the Torah of the Arizal we have from Rav Chaim Vital. But there's another very, very important thing that a lot of people don't know about, a very, very important Talmud of the Arizal. And I'm going to tell it to you because it has a lot to do with Sefer Sifsei Chein. There was another Talmud of the Arizal, and his name was Harav Yisroel Suruk. Sometimes it's spelled with a kuf, Suruk, and sometimes it's spelled with a gimel, Surug. This Talmud of the Arizal, I'll tell you very quickly that we have a lot of Kabbalistic material from him that Rav Chaim Vital does not speak about. And there are places that they say Rav Chaim Vital alludes to it, but he does not speak openly about it. And so most of the Torah of the Arizal we have from Rav Chaim Vital, but there is a whole section of Torah from Harav Yisroel Surug. Firstly, he was a very mysterious person, and as opposed to Rav Chaim Vital, that we have a full personal diary of his life and all the seforim that he wrote, we don't have this by Harav Yisroel Surug. Rabbi Yisroel Surug is not, we don't know too much about him, and there's even some people even question exactly what his role was with the Arizal, etc., etc. Reb Chaim Vital doesn't speak about him at all, so that's a very big question mark.
What do you mean they question what his role was?
Well, Reb Chaim Vital gives a list of all the Talmidim of the Arizal. He's not there. And the Torah of Rabbi Yisroel Surug is such high Torah. The Leshem, Rav Elyashiv, this is the Rav Elyashiv who was recently nifter, his Zayda was the Baal HaLeshem. The Leshem it's an amazing sefer explaining the concepts of the Arizal in many volumes. He was a genius. He was probably from the very biggest Mekubalim in his door. He lived about 100 years ago. And the Leshem has a whole section in his sefer called Shar HaPoine Kadim, which explains the Torah of Rabbi Yisroel Surug. And the Leshem in his introduction is crying. He's crying that this Torah is sitting in corners and nobody's touching it. And he says this Torah is much, much higher than the Torah of Reb Chaim Vital. He doesn't mean that in a negative way. He means the Torah of Rabbi Yisroel Surug is describing much higher places than what Reb Chaim Vital is describing. And so the Leshem is crying that nobody's learning this. Everybody's learning Baruch Hashem, much more people every day. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger that people are learning Reb Chaim Vital. But Rabbi Yisroel Surug, nobody's learning it. What are the seforim of Rabbi Yisroel Surug? So he actually didn't write anything himself, but the Talmidim wrote. And I don't know if you've ever heard of these seforim or not. They're not as commonly heard of, but we have many, many seforim from the Talmidim of Rabbi Yisroel Surug and what they heard from him directly, and how they expanded upon it. And I don't know if you've heard of these seforim. One is called Emek HaMelech, one is called Vayakol Moshe, one is called Sharei Gan Eden. All the Ramami Pano is a Talmud of Rabbi Yisrael Saruk. The Ramami Pano, it's actually, really it's Fano. It's a place, it's a city in Italy. Fano. Ramami Pano was considered the greatest of the Mekubalim in Europe in his time. He is a Talmud of Rabbi Yisrael Saruk. Why? The big question is, why does Rav Chaim Vital not write about him? So what most people agree is probably the pshat, is that Rabbi Yisrael Saruk already left the Arizal before Rav Chaim Vital came on board. Rav Chaim Vital was not with the Arizal from the very beginning, and they assume that he left. There's a story, I'll tell it very quickly. There's a story about how Rabbi Yisrael Saruk left Eretz Yisrael, and the story is that the Marashal was from the big Gedolei Ador in Poland, and the Marashal had heard that the Arizal's Torah was coming out, and the Arizal's Torah is mind-boggling. It's all chidushim, it's all new. Nobody had ever said such things before. So the Marashal was disturbed by this, and he didn't believe it, and he was against it. And the story goes that the Marashal was going to take his Beis Din and put the Arizal in Cherem because he didn't know where this stuff was coming from. There was no precedent to this. There was no one to rely on for the things that the Arizal said. There was no one to rely on. We have a Masorah that everything that the Arizal said is a Masorah peh el peh from Eliyahu Hanavi. So the Marashal didn't go for this. And the Marashal, the story goes that the Marashal on an Erev Shabbos was going to gather his Beis Din and put the Arizal in Cherem, and to save Klal Yisrael from this disaster that he thought. The Arizal, through his Ruach HaKodesh, found out about it on Erev Shabbos, and he sent Rabbi Yisrael Saruk on a mission to go to the Marashal and to calm him down and explain to him what the Torah of the Arizal is, and to try to avert this cherem that was going to happen. And it says, according to the story, the Rabbi Yisrael Saruk zapped himself to Poland on an Erev Shabbos, and so he went from Eretz Yisrael to Poland, and he arrived there a few hours later, and he arrived by the Marashal. And he said he needs to meet with him immediately. And he sat with him and he explained to him what was going on by the Arizal. And not only that, but the Arizal's last name is Luria, because there was a river, I'm not sure if it was in France, I'm not sure where this river was. I think it was called the Loire. Loire? Where is it, in France? France. So he told the Arizal's last name was Luria, and the Marashal's last name was Luria, and he told him we're cousins, by the way. And he was Rabbi Yisrael Saruk was able to convince the Marashal that Adrabah, there's nothing wrong with the Torah of the Arizal. Adrabah, the Torah of the Arizal is everything, and the Marashal accepted it, and that is the story of how Rabbi Yisrael Saruk left Eretz Yisrael and ended up in Europe. And once he was there, he gathered around himself Talmidim. And there was, at that time in Eretz Yisrael, there was a cherem that you were not allowed to take the ksavim of the Arizal out of Eretz Yisrael. The Mekubalim in the times of Rav Chaim Vital and after, there was a cherem that they did not allow. They felt that the Torah of the Arizal was so holy that the world is not ready for it. There was a cherem. You were not allowed to take the ksavim of the Arizal out of Eretz Yisrael. That was their belief. That was their understanding. In the meantime, Rabbi Yisrael Saruk was in Europe, and Rabbi Yisrael Saruk gathered around him Talmidim, and those Talmidim started to write seforim such as the Ramami Pano, and again all the people that I mentioned, the Emek HaMelech and the Vayakol Moshe. There are other seforim as well, Noivlas Chachma, and these seforim got printed much earlier than the seforim of the Arizal of Reb Chaim Vital in Eretz Yisrael, because in Eretz Yisrael there was a thing that everything had to be kept secret, and nothing was printed, and nothing could go out of the country. But in Europe there was a different shit entirely. And so these Svarim started getting printed in Europe, they say, for instance, the Sefer Emek HaMelech was the Ikar Sefer in Kabbalah by the Gra, by the Vilna Gaon. And what ended up happening was this Torah of Rabbi Yisrael Sarug ended up circulating through Europe, and this became one of the bases of the Torah that the chassidishe seforim were going to be built from. And one beautiful, beautiful thing about Sefer Sifsei Chein that I haven't seen it really anywhere else. Even when the Leshem writes the system of Rabbi Yisrael Saruk, he says, really, I could have put everything together because it's really one emes. There's only one truth. It's all true. So really, the natural way would be for the Leshem to take the Torah of Reb Chaim Vital. It's all Torah's Arizal. It's all the Arizal. The natural thing would have been to take the Torah of the Arizal and what happened, the Torah of Reb Chaim Vital and the Torah of Reb Yisrael Saruk, which is even described the higher places, earlier is a relative word, but earlier bechinas that were happening before, and it should have been put all together in one system. But the Leshem says, you know what, until now, these two things were always separate. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it separate. So that's what he does. He explains all of Reb Chaim Vital, and in the end of one of his svarim, he explains the whole Torah of Rabbi Yisrael Saruk. This sefer, if you want to understand chassidishe svarim properly, you're going to get a lot of elements in chassidishe svarim that come from the Torah of Rabbi Yisrael Saruk. There's no question. It's all over the place. In the first Torah in Morva Shemesh, he mentions the Sefer Emek HaMelech in the very first Torah, and you're going to see this throughout Chassidic Svarim, because this was a big chelik of the Kabbalah that they had. This Sefer Sifsei Chein integrates the Torah of Reb Chaim Vital together with the Torah of Rabbi Yisrael Saruk, and it brings down many Chassidic Svarim and many addresses and marmakomis from Reb Chaim Vital, and also from these other svarim of the Talmidim of Rabbi Yisrael Saruk.
R Chaskel,
Yes.
you mentioned who was the Mechaber of Sifsei Chein?
The Mechaber, no, I did not mention. Mechaber of Sifsei Chein is a person, his name was Rabbi Kraus. He's no longer living. I think he lived in Seagate, which is a part of Brooklyn. And I don't know too much about him, to be honest. What I do know is that his Talmidim put out the second. He's not around anymore. The Talmidim put out the second edition, and they added a lot of good material, very important chassidishe material, to enhance the sefer. We're almost out of time. So I did really want to get into the meat of the sefer today. But I felt I could not do it without that introduction. So, thank you. Hashem, a few quick things. Anybody who wants the sefer, so I have here 4 copies that I bought today from Miriam's. I'm not making any money on it. They cost me $45. So anyone who wants to buy a sefer today, they are available for $45. There's 4 of them. That's number 1. If in the future, if you want me to pick up one from you, I cleaned them out today, but he will order more. So if anybody needs one, you can let me know. I imagine next week I'll make probably some copies, but I would rather not be making copies every week. It's a big tircha to make all these copies. So if you want to try it out for a week or 2 or 3, see if you like it. I would encourage everyone, if you do like the shiur, whether you're here in person or you're on Zoom, I would encourage everybody to buy the sefer. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me. My phone number is 647-272-9873. I'm happy to answer any questions. WhatsApp is the best. So if you want to call me, I can try to take your call, but if you send me a little WhatsApp message, either a voice message or a WhatsApp text, that's the best. If you don't have WhatsApp, regular text is good, or you can give me a call. So Mitzvah Hashem, now next week, we want to do it 8:45? Okay, so Mitzvah Hashem, next week, we will meet here again in Rabbi Gisson's Shul, Thursday night in Mitzvah Hashem. It's going to be 15 minutes earlier, 8:45. And following my shiur, is going to be Rabbi Gisselson Shir in Bayam Darkecha.
That's right.
You wanna tell them?
First of all, thank you, R Chaskel, for a fantastic shir. It was mamish amazing, in true R Chaskel style, which we all love. So thank you so much. In Mitzvah Shem, we'll start the second portion of this year of the Chabura next week. In case you didn't hear, I'm coming down with something terrible. I have a fever, so I'm not going to be giving this year tonight. But we'll start next week, God willing. And that's it. Thank you very much. Shkoyach to everybody for coming and for joining up. And in Mitzvah Shem, we'll...
Question?
One thing quickly, by the way, I wanted to point out that from all of the Rashi Tevis in the first part of this year, happens to be that Reish Goli is Gematria 553, which happens to be the exact Gematria of Nachman ben Simcha. Nachman ben Simcha.
This is from Kochvei Or, right?
No, I just thought of it now.
Oh, you thought of it?
Yeah, I'm sure it's there, but Nachman ben Simcha. Interesting.
I have more respect for you.
So Shkoyach Reb Chaskel, Shkoyach. Okay, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you.
Should we listen to the question on the Zoom?
Sure.
What goes after? Just, are you going to be recording these shiurim?
Oh, these shiurim are recorded.
All these shiurim
very good.
will be recorded and
Posted on YouTube?
Posted onto YouTube, onto our YouTube channel. And in Mitzvah Shem, we're trying our best to figure out a way to get them onto just an audio format as well, like SoundCloud or something like that. We haven't quite pulled it off yet, but we're getting there. I just saw there's a question here. B'yam Darkecha, are we starting at the beginning? So it's B'yam Darkecha on Oitzres Chaim, and we're a little ways into it. We're not very far into it. We're just in the portion that's talking about the Chalal and Tzimtzum. So, but we are going to pick up from where we were, and but we're literally still in the first few words of the Oitzres Chaim. So we're mamish very close to the beginning. And there's amazing stuff in there, mamish, life-changing, amazing stuff. So, Mitzvah Shem, we'll have a ride next week. Shkoyach, everybody. Thank you very much for joining.
I have a question.